Hello, everyone. My name is Zach. I'm joined by my co-hosts Ed
Hello.
and Steve Yurko.
Hey there.
And we are just so excited to have the masterful animator Vincent Chansard with us today. How's it going, Vincent?
Hello. I don't know about masterful, but I'm here indeed, and I'm glad to be here with you guys.
We should think of other adjectives then, but they're all going to be positive. I hate to tell you. So Vincent, for those who don't know, do you want to let everyone know how did you get into animation and you know what drew you to it?
Yeah, I can. I guess I can like go a bit into it. Like most people, I started by just drawing. I liked manga and stuff like that, and I had no idea what to do with my life. And I went into fine arts, and it really wasn't my thing. I really was very unhappy with it all. But I was lucky enough to have a school in which there were like animation days, like 3 days to like just discover animation, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, I do like that. I guess I could try, and I really bonded with the people. I felt at home very much, and I was like, yeah, I want to do animation.
That's awesome. What series were you into as a kid or as a student?
Oh, uh, as a student, a lot of the thing I was like kind of force fed by my environment was very much all the Western production, a lot of Disney and stuff. But as a kid, it was a lot of Medabots, Sailor Moon, all of these like shows that like came out. Sailor Moon is still my favorite animated series.
Cool.
But yeah, as a student, I was like Western animation school. It's pretty much nothing but Disney Pixar.
And how did you find One Piece?
Well, I was a huge manga reader. It's kind of like what started me, compelled me to draw in the first place. And One Piece was my favorite manga ever. And I was at the time when I started animation, I was kind of a anime hater, if that makes sense. And so yeah, I just really fell in love with the manga, just like pretty much everyone.
Around when was it that you caught up? Like what was going on in the story, I guess.
I started reading when Skypia was like week to week
Wow. Okay.
in Japan. In
Ooh.
Japan.
Yeah. I think we have like two people on the show who started around then. And Steve, I know you're not one of them, but you started around a little after that, right?
No, definitely by when I was discovering One Piece, I'm pretty sure Skypea was going on. Yeah, in Japan as well. So, I'm curious a little bit more about your time in school. Like animation was just kind of like, oh, hey, this week we're doing animation. For a class or something. I'm guessing there really wasn't any. There was no further trajectory for animation besides like just something you're just like what the class I'm sorry, I'm tripping my words here. Just like there was really nothing for animation beyond just like this is a little thing we're gonna do for the day. So I'm curious, after did you finish school?
Yeah.
Did you?
So
uh,
I did three different school kind of. Like I did
oh, okay.
first a prep school, kind of a year of preparing you to try the big school exams, and I did that for 2 years because I kept on failing at every single exam I tried, and I ended up entering an animation school called George Méliès. I stayed there for a year, and then I was accepted in another school called Les Gobelins in Paris.
Oh, okay.
And for I think the question was like, how were the exercise? Mostly, how it went is that we had like kind of like a big subject for like 1 month. We would do nothing but like work cycle, for example. And then the months after, it would be something different, like quadruped work cycle, and so on. And then after a few years, we started making films, and yeah, that's kind of how it went.
And what was your career like post college? Did you find work immediately, or?
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky. Like I did an internship during my third year at Gobelins in a very cool animation studio in Paris called La Cachette, and I really bonded with the people. I really loved these guys' work, and they, I guess, were all right with mine. So during my fourth year, as I was working on my graduation film, they like sent me an email and they were like, if you want to come and work with us, like we'd be delighted to have you. So I once I got out of school, I just joined them.
That's great. What was your stuff in school very anime inspired?
So in all animation school, there is that thing where like kind of everyone, like Akira and stuff, but it's not really what people tend to go toward. Like there is like a very big, almost cult like thing about like acting, and how every single animator want to be an acting animator back then. So it was, I mean, it was interesting. I did enjoy that, but for sure, I had to. A lot of the way I developed myself at school was like by watching stuff that other people would not be watching seriously. Like I remember Kill la Kill coming out, for example, and it was something that most people did not even care to watch at, and yeah, I would do a lot of exercise outside of school, which were more anime inclined, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how were you first approached to work on Japanese productions? Who brought you into that?
Lady Luck did. It was a director and animator that I absolutely love, whose name is Shingo Yamashita. His work on Naruto, his Naruto stuff is very known. He's worked on Birdie the Mighty Decode. And back then, he was working on a Season 9 League of Legends teaser, kind of. And he wanted to work with several young animators, and I was one of the lucky people he contacted to work with. So that was my first anime production, very much.
He has quite a resume. I'm just looking at it right now. And so I know you mentioned that I think a lot of people felt this way back then, but the One Piece anime wasn't really your gateway into One Piece. But was there a specific anime or that like really has inspired you through your career, or that like really opened the door into your into anime for you? Besides Sailor Moon, I guess that might be the answer. But
oh, that's. I guess that's very changing. Like I have a few. Like when I was a student, I guess what really reconnected me to like anime, because of course everyone would be like, "Oh, did you watch the latest Disney movie?" And at some point, I like watched like Gurren Lagann, and that was what made me be like, "Oh wait, I do love that. Maybe a tiny bit more than Moana." And And so yeah, this Gurren Lagann really reconnected me with anime kind of, because I used to watch a lot of anime when I was a kid and stopped when I went into animation. And then there was of course all the staple anime series like Furikuri, of course Mob, of course Naruto, all the big names that you can think of. But lately, as I'm now, I'm finally a professional. Lately, One Piece is truly, the anime that has inspired me the most.
Yeah, and I think we were talking the other week about this too with other animators, but like One Piece has changed so dramatically as an anime, and watching the most recent 2 episodes. I don't know, Steve or Ed, if you agree, but it feels almost like Space Dandy-ish to me in that Fooly Cooly, in that it feels like an animator's playground in a way that I never.
I'd say it feels more like
sure.
Space Dandy than Gear 5 Luffy is kind of a Space Dandy character.
It, I guess that's true. I mean, I think your Gurren Lagann analogy also works really well because I've always kind of hoped One Piece would kind of get to that bigger and like exponentially things just getting bigger and bigger in both the animation and the story, and it certainly has felt that way. And so, how is it? How did you get your foot in the door at One Piece, or I should say, at Toei?
Well, once again,
Lucky?
through luck, very much. I think back then it was Mineta-san who contacted me. I was working on Boruto. I don't remember on which episode it was, but Mineta-san reached out to me and he asked me if I wanted to participate in One Piece. And back then was when, Wano had started and we were starting to have some very consistent spectacle. And I was starting to One Piece has always been my favorite manga. So I was, starting to look kind of like in the direction of One Piece, like, okay, I see what's happening and I like that. And the episode they wanted me to start on was directed by the no very well known Megumi Shitani, and I saw the storyboard and I was like, I've got to participate. I have to. I cannot say no.
And so I think that was. I'm just trying to remember the episode number.
957.
57.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, so I've been learning a lot about Sakuga culture over the last few months. And so your scene was the one that went through like the 7 warlords and like the whole kind of like the history of what got us to Wano, right? I remember at the time, Steve, and Ed, I think we were doing our recap of the anime episode then of just how outstanding and out of the box that specific scene felt.
Yeah, I remember being fooled for a moment, thinking I remember distinctly the Blackbeard animation. It was like so smooth. I was like, and apologies if this is insulting all, but I was just like, was that CG? Because that just like moved very fluidly. And no, it's no. Yeah, I quickly learned that there was a man behind that, and yeah, it's that. Yeah, the Warlords sequence is absolutely stunning. The transitions and just just as simple as just like Jinbei just like popping his head up when he's in the cell. It's just it's great. There's so much life to it, even in its subtlety.
Thank you. I think Ishitani-san already had like so much work, laid out at storyboard stage. Like it's very relaxing as an animator when you just have to, just do the animating. And, the scene was already stunning in the storyboard phase. So I just did my best. I still feel like the volume on Jinbei is not that consistent. I have a key that like still haunt me to this day. where like he squash a bit too much, but I try not to think about it too much.
Yeah, well, the artist is always going to be the only one who notices, and sometimes they're the only ones that care.
I think in this case, both. Probably.
No, I'm curious what Ishitani's storyboards are like, because it's like with the storyboards in Japan, they're a lot more like what storyboards used to be. But because you're saying like they like she made it so clear. I'm curious like how many drawings there were for poses, or is just a lot of it just very like is it very complex and detailed, or her board's still very kind of very few poses,
Really
open
dependent.
to interpretation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I cut you?
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Steve.
You're fine.
Really dependent of the cut. Like on this whole section, also with like the crocodile part that I did not do. It was just one pose, but it was basically an illustration. She also literally noted what compositing she wanted on the storyboard. Then I think
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's very
like
impressive.
she's like so like because her episodes are just filled with like specific color tones and wow.
Absolutely. Some sequence, like I remember, like the baggy sequence, she had nearly all the poses. Like it was very well detailed. So I feel like it really depends on if she has a vision for the movement or not. But I think my sequence were very illustration and composition heavy, so I don't feel like there was a need for a lot of drawing, I guess.
Do you think and as like as the show's gone on, you've incorporated more scenes? Because I think of like the sequence with King and Zoro. Was any of that up to your interpretation, or was that in the boards? Like even like the moment when you see young King just for a second, it flashes. Was that in the boards as well?
Oh, so this really depend on like the director and it depends on a lot. A lot of the time we have a brief where like the director will tell me these are the things that I really care for, please don't change that, but this, for example, I'm not sure, I did something, you feel free to interpret it. So it really depends. Some directors are like stick to it, I don't feel like there is a need to change it, and some directors are like you can do what you want. For example, I really love working with Henry for that reason, because Henry is very clear where on which cut is like, okay, this I really want that, but this it's completely up to your own interpretation. And I think that's something that's very precious, like this clarity between like the director and the animator. No, in the precise case of Zoro versus King, there are some cuts where there was like no need for much change. Like when Zoro is talking, when King is talking, I feel like there was like no real need for like a big change. Maybe like the biggest change I did during like the talking part is instead of having just King not moving and talking, I made a thing where I like have the camera starting on his shoulder and then go a bit in the perspective. But like where I mostly change stuff is on the action part. I think Ishizuka's San's storyboard was full of amazing visual ideas. And when you see like this kind of like just raw imaginative material, it just inspire you. I was just very inspired by what Ishizuka-san put in there, and I try to like push it even further, like adding more dragons, for example, or instead of having just a dragon go from A to B, trying to have them go under rocks, go on top of rock, disintegrate rocks, stuff like that. Instead of having Zoro just cutting for like 5 seconds the same dragon, I tried to like really follow the inside of the dragon. Of course, you talked about the impact frame. It's something that I have a tendency to add a lot, and I felt that it made sense to show the emotion of both King and Zoro using impact frames. Did I answer the question? I feel like I
yes. Oh, you gave plenty of answers. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Going back. No. I'm going back and watching a lot of your scenes myself, and I'm just like, like just keeping track of all the different dragons, and just like they're all flying different directions. No, that answered a lot, because I'm like, oh, who was tracking that? And as you said, like you kind of that was kind of some of your own interpretation there, and it's an amazing scene. I don't envy you, but I think the hard work paid off, because it's absolutely a stunner.
Thank you. I did what I could.
You did plenty. You did
more than yeah.
I know. I say, like, artists, I always think that artists shouldn't decide their own deadlines, because we'll work on something forever. It's unfortunately, it's in the business, you got to learn when to let things go, even when it's not perfect. But I don't think anyone was complaining, Vincent.
I still have a lot to learn, honestly, and I know I will only get better, and I have to accept that, like, sometimes I do stuff and I'm not the happiest about it, but that's how it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't always get too precious.
I mean, go, Steve.
No, go ahead, Zach.
I was just gonna say, I remember you drawing Kaido and all the little details that need to be in him, and then imagining the animating process and going and adding, just looking. I think Kaido in particular, Vincent, is just like I feel. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you portray him in such a, I'm going to use the word cool way, that I feel like you enjoy that character. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I will not correct you, as
okay,
you are
good.
Right. I am very much an antagonist guy. My favorite characters. Yeah, I guess it's obvious by now. And my favorite character are always antagonists. And artistically speaking, I am very much influenced a lot by Andreas Deja, who was like the Disney antagonist animator.
Yeah, like that, and that's like an era of like people that were just assigned to specific characters.
I'd say.
I mean, Henry's kind of like that, because Henry got a lot of Dragon Kaido scenes,
That's true.
Early on. No, thanks for bringing up Kaido, Zach, because I just wanted to comment, Vincent. Kaido is so difficult to draw because there's so many details on him, and I'm talking about the scales. But
the tattoos, so on.
But I gotta commend you for the way you interpret Kaido. Like, I don't know if volume-esque is the word for it, but when he moves in your animation, it feels so, like, it feels three-dimensional. It feels like the scales, you go out of your way to, like, draw all those scales in, and just the character feels so alive.
And evil, which is good.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of a great question to ask for that. But I can't help but think of some simple. It's like, how long does it take to draw Kaido?
Thank you. I mean, I do my best. For the time it takes, it very much, as I'm sure you already guessed, depend on how close we are on him. Like when you have the entire body to draw, of course it takes more time. His face is not necessarily that long. It might be surprising, but like the most difficult thing, at least to me, because I know it completely changed from one animator to another, the most difficult thing to me is not necessarily stuff like Kaido scales. It's not necessarily the organic stuff. It's much more the inorganic, very geometrical stuff. Like, for example, all the small detail on King's Claw, for example, was actually way harder than Kaido. Because the thing with like inorganic thing, a very solid and very strong shape design, like small circles, or like the bend he has around his arm, which has to be perfect, because if it's not perfect, you see it instantly. And so it takes a lot of time to like redraw like that one circle. Where Kaido, your scales, like it can be organic. Like when he smile, the scale like, go with his skin. So you see it way less, at least.
It's the way the characters move. Yeah, you really like it. Does it? Organic is a great term to use for it. I got to commend you too, even for like one of the more recent Kaido scenes you did, where he's like the angry drunk.
Yeah,
I love that. You even have the texture on his tongue.
Oh, now I have to rewatch that.
It feels like it feels so alive. It's I'm always blown away when I see your Kaido scenes.
Oh yeah,
I mean all the scenes, but the Kaido stuff, I was just like, that is work right there, and I think that's I mean that's one of the great things about art that's made by hand, is just knowing like, wow, someone put the time into this, and that's part of the enjoyment I get from watching a lot of these scenes. But yeah,
thank you.
It's phenomenal.
I really love Kaido, and I think we've all read the manga. We know how. I don't know how you feel about his character. I have a lot to say about his character. I will try to be very brief about it. But personally, being a fan of Kaido and reading the manga, and I think for now it's by design, but I felt like we were missing stuff to avoid as much spoiler as possible. But I personally am of the belief that one of my favorite characters in animation is Captain Hook in the original Disney movie. And Captain Hook is not a very deep character when you really look at the movie. And yet he is so entertaining just because of the way he moves.
Yeah.
And I just try to replicate this energy where like I want to make him entertaining to watch. It's kind of like Jim Carrey, like sometimes he works for like, let's say it's very bad movie, but he makes the experience enjoyable by his acting, by his presence. And I'm just doing my best to make Kaido as entertaining as possible.
That's a great way to put it. I think we were talking to Henry when I was even saying I was commenting on I never really felt Kaido was nearly as menacing in the manga as he has been in the anime, and I think a lot of that is your doing, which is good. I think he is an entertaining villain, certainly. I think the stuff, particularly in, I think it was 1069 that you worked on, I think really, as even the tongue texture, as I've now learned, for Kaido. It's so how is it you've also worked on some of the Gear 5 stuff, and I think we noted last week how it did feel like there was a maniacal energy to him, which I love because I think it's warranted. Do you think some of the of what you worked on with Gear 5 Luffy had some of the, I guess, being Kaido's antagonist like built into it?
I think I'm, of course, always going to be influenced by myself to some extent. Gear 5 is like very interesting to talk about in an animation perspective. I'm not sure my cuts are necessarily the best to represent Gear 5 in animation. I don't think Gear 5 is at its best when the character is stationary. I think it really shines in motion. And a lot of my cuts were like Luffy on, like basically on the same spot. But I tried to make something to differentiate Luffy's animation from what I do for Kaido, but maybe I did not succeed. I don't know.
No, I think it was certainly different. I think that
Kaido definitely doesn't bounce around all over the place like Luffy. So I think you did fine.
No, I just meant that I think you captured what makes Gear 5 really interesting is that, and we've talked about it, and I think there's just a lot of discussion in the One Piece community about like the odd confluence of, super detailed, amazing Japanese animation, although being done by yourself in Europe, in this case, and combined with like the original kind of Western animation, Looney Tunes, or whatever other Disney I'd throw in. But that just feels very One Piece to me. And I know you haven't, I don't know what you've done in the future, obviously, but you have only had a limited amount of scenes, as far as we know, at least, with Gear 5. I'm wondering just like what kind of direction you were given, or whether you were able to play fast and loose with that.
I have to be careful in answering that.
Okay.
I will say I think Gear 5 is defined by the fact that the only limit to Luffy's power is animation. And I think it should translate to animating it. I think Gear 5 should, in its animation, should embody freedom. Freedom from the model sheet, freedom from anatomy, freedom from rules and animation rules in general. No, again, like I think when like Luffy is like just sitting on a rock, you can't, like you can really go like crazy with that. But I've had to watch a lot of Tom and Jerry. Again, I cannot say anything about what's coming. But I personally feel like, and that's just about like me in general, I feel like there were some missing opportunity considering the cartoon reference and all the possibilities that were at my disponibility. I personally would have liked to see more cartoon stuff in an anime, a Sakuga environment, if that makes sense. Again, that's just about like my work. That being said, I shouldn't say anymore. That being said, I shouldn't say anymore.
Okay. No, I understand. I think that's kind of what I mean, we haven't seen the last of Gear 5 as we sit here today, but I think that's like when we read the manga, at least we could put ourselves back a year or so ago. That's what we, I think, all loved about it, and also what we all hoped and were thrilled and excited to see in the anime. I mean, it's so One Piece. I mean, you talk about it's a confluence of Disney and Japanese, manga or anime, and I think that does come across. But you're right. I could always use more Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, especially because of how much actually like Oda said it himself. He learned how to draw by like drawing some Disney character.
Yeah, and I mean, you look back, it's the Tom and Jerry influence is always kind of there, and the Disney influences. I mean, with was Lord of the Coast, Steve. That's always been.
Oh
there
yeah,
as
like
well.
Disney has always been in One Piece's DNA for sure. But then again, so is the whole manga and anime industry from its beginnings. But I'm glad to see kind of One Piece kind of go back to that when it gets more ridiculous, more like a cartoon. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping there'll be a lot of opportunities beyond what's going on in the manga now, even for the animators to flex their muscles there.
Yeah. It's I'm sorry to interrupt you here, Zach, but it's something that I've like realized, but as crazy as it may sound, it may sound completely crazy what I'm about to say, but I think there is not enough to animate. There is not enough content for all the animators we have on One Piece. It feels like we've just started animating it, and now it's gone. You know what I mean?
You mean Gear 5 or just One Piece in general?
Gear 5.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not going to be here
think,
forever.
Yeah, not to spoil people, but he eventually stops using Gear 5. But
Wow.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Bold.
I think we all agree with you here, but I mean, I guess that's also, if we just had Gear 5 all the time, it would kind of lose some of the special, specialness around it. Yeah, I get it. But also, as we said before, it's just been so amazing seeing One Piece as this animator's playground that, of course, I think, but I assume all of you and also all of us watching would love to see what everyone would do with that power, because it's like the animators are given that power in a way.
Yeah. I think on my end, and I will talk more about this once it's all over, but I think I'm aware of my strength, and for like this stretch of episode, I wanted to dedicate myself more to Kaido, actually, because I absolutely trust my colleague with like the Gear 5. Hopefully it will make sense at the end.
The good thing is Luffy's power stretches to, no, I don't mean all these puns, stretches to Kaido as well.
You do mean this pun.
The problem is I accidentally make puns. I don't think of them ahead of time. But I mean, like the eyes popping out and stuff. Like Kaido is affected by all the cartoon logic that literally attacks him. Steve, Ed, did you have any other questions for Vincent?
Well, should we do our usual One Piece
I was
questions?
going to. I want to give you a chance before. So we ask all our guests kind of their favorites when it comes to One Piece. So I'm going to do the same for you. The first is, who is your favorite Straw Hat?
Chopper.
From the antagonist lover, I don't know if I was expecting that.
I know.
Except Monster Chopper, I guess.
I mean, it's just his flashback is kind of when I caught up with what was available in France back then. And I was a kid back then. I was a little children. And it just I saw that backstory and I was like, okay, I'm a One Piece guy.
How old were you? I'm just curious when you read that originally, because I'm like wondering. It's so emotionally fraught. Like wondering.
Yeah, I'm not. I might have been 12, 13.
Okay. I just want to make sure you weren't like 7, reading. I feel like, I don't know. There's like an age where that would start to get traumatic.
Okay.
I don't know exactly when. The second question: who is your favorite non-Straw Hat pirate or Straw Hat character?
Right now it's Kaido, but I feel like Blackbeard is gonna take my Earth soon.
That also answers, I think, my other question is who your favorite antagonist is.
Oh,
Which I should have realized kind of melting it.
Lord.
Well, here, I'll do the reverse. Who is your favorite protagonist who's not a Straw Hat?
I might forget one, but the one that comes on top of my head right now is Bartolomeo.
That's a good one. Well, he starts out, well, he's a heel, as I've learned from Steve. What is your favorite? I'm gonna say except for Wano. What is your favorite story arc? I don't know if Wano would hit that or not.
Ennie's Lobby, Water 7. Like many
Good
people.
answer. Yeah, I think we all agree.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not original.
No, I mean there's a reason. That
No, you sound like you're from our generation of One Piece fandom. So
yeah, there's definitely recency bias, I think, with the younger group of fans. This is old men talking. What am I missing? Am I missing anything, Ed? I think those.
No, I think that's it.
I think that's it. I'll also say, so Vincent, I think we were talking, first of all, I did want to ask you one question.
Okay.
So you're working in France. How is it working remotely doing the kind of work that you do with Japan?
Right now it's all right. I mean, there is a lot to say about this matter. When I started working for Japan, like COVID hit, so I had like not much choice.
Right.
Thankfully, I've been able to like go to Toei once Japan like lifted their restriction, which was literally just a few months ago.
Yeah.
But overall, it's going well. I'm starting. I guess what's helping in comparison with other show I've worked for in the past is I'm starting to know kind of well all the One Piece team. Like I've worked with a lot of directors, I've worked with a lot of production assistants. I'm starting to know people. I talk to my colleagues on Discord, on Twitter. So I think the One Piece team is just making it just very easy for me. Let's say it.
Good.
Let's say it that way.
Yeah. I was just curious because I've like you're halfway around the world, so I'm sure that's interesting. Yeah. And I also know that you told me before we started that you were a studious reader of the current chapters, and hopefully one day we could get your thoughts on those as well. Vincent, where could people find you? What work that maybe people don't know about would you like to let people know about?
I have no idea. I mean, if you want to find my work, you can Vincent Chansard on Twitter is the way to go usually. And yeah.
Okay, cool. Vincent, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, of course.
Anytime.
It was a pleasure. Yeah.
Pleasure.
Likewise.